My Dandavat pranams to everybody. Haribol, Haribol. So today is the 24th, Thursday, October 2024. So today's a very special day here in Radhakund. It's Bahulastami. It's the day that, or the night rather, because Radhakund and Shamkund appeared in midnight after Krishna had killed Aristasura. So we'll speak about this pastime today and begin. Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Jai Vaishnav Sabhaboma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srila Baladevi Dibhushan Gaudi Vedantaracharya ki jai. Jai Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Traya ki jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's ki jai. Arupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gaura Parsada ki jai. Namacharya Shulharis Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikahol Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Antadvip Mayapur Simantadvip Gautrandvip Madhyadvip Koladvip Riturdvip Janadvip Modamdvip Budadvip Atmaka Navadvip Dham ki jai. Badravan Bandiravan Beovan Lohavan Mahavan Madhuvan Talvan Kamudvan Bahulavan Vrindavan, Kadiyavan, Kamyavan, Brajamandal ki jai. Shishi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopigo Govardhan Dwarasavar Matmika Shri Brajamandal ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shamakund Ganga Jamuna Devi Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Shrimati Brinda Devi Maharani ki jai. Shrimati Yogamaya Purnamasi Devi Maharani ki jai. Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra ki jai. Kitra Mandal ki jai. Sarva Vigna Vanasa Kadashina Shingadev Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Charadam ki jai. Charasampradaya ki jai. Charya ki jai. Akara Mataraj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki jai. Shri Keshav Chi Gaudiya Mat ki jai. Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Ho. Almagina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taraliye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Priya Surupe Jaita Surupe Prema Surupe Sahajavi Rupe Nijana Rupe Prabhuika Rupe Tatana Rupe Swagala Surupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunavara Tinokala Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dutikatamba Sadapita Sada Hridare Kandare Sparatu Vasachinandanaha Yam Pravajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabhavinidustam Sarvabhutam Hritim Munimanatoshme Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karma Ditarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Pajami Radam Aravinda Netram Smarami Radam Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radam Karuna Varadram Tatomamahasti Katina Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignai Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charantikam. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams under the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela, Pravishta Om, Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I offer the same again millions of times under the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nitya Leela, Pravishta Om, Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Varg, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord. My Dandavat pranams to everyone. Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhavevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavena Namo. So today is Bahulastami, and actually Aristasura, the demon, was killed in the evening time. Krishna was just preparing for thinking about his Ras Leela pastimes when he was suddenly interrupted by this heavy demon, Arista. Arista had been sent by Kamsa, and it's described that Arista's tail was standing up straight and clouds were hovering around it. And also the hump on his back thought it was a mountain, and they were also hovering around the hump on the back of the cow, back of the bull. And his horns were immense. And he angrily came into the village of Vrindavan, and he began breaking the embankments of the waterways that were around the fields in the pasturing grounds, etc., the cultivating fields. And he was making a big disturbance, knocking over little buildings and stuff like that. And the residents, they became panicked. The Brijbasis, they saw this huge bull and they saw his immense strength, and they immediately ran to Krishna. And Krishna, because they have always been told that Krishna will always protect them. This is what Garga Rishi said. He said, whenever any problem comes in Vrindavan, Krishna will always protect you and help you. So they'd had experience of this previously. So they ran to Krishna. And Krishna immediately came in front of Arista and started shouting at him, "Who do you think you are to come into my village while I am here?" And very angrily speaking to him like this. Of course, Arista could understand what Krishna was saying. He became enraged. And then Krishna, it's described, he nonchalantly, very casually, just put his arm around a friend, Subal, who was standing beside him, and just said, come on, let's see your stuff, Arista. And Arista put his horns down on the ground and absolutely charged full steam ahead to Krishna. And Krishna just took one of the horns and swung him away with the same energy that Arista was attacking Krishna. Krishna used that same force to throw Arista just on his back, far, far away. Arista got up and was enraged that someone had actually challenged him and thwarted his attempt. So this time he put his horns down and came charging back with even greater rage. And Krishna, at this time, when he came, Krishna is described just picked up one of his horns and thrashed him. It's described like a wet rag, just again and again and again on the ground. Just thrashed him. Like a wet rag is how it's described in the Bhagavatam. And then when Arista was practically unconscious, then Krishna yanked out one of the horns in his head and then proceeded to smash him again. He didn't pierce with the horn, but he just smashed him on the head, and he went to the abode of Yamaraj. He lost his life. And Krishna, at that time, the gopis were close by because they'd been preparing for the Ras Leela. And the gopis immediately said, because Krishna smiled to them and was expecting their encouragement for the great hero that he was, killing this bull, because always the gopis would encourage him like this when he was demonstrating his heroic pastimes. But this time the gopis said, "No, don't come near us. You're contaminated. You've killed a bull." And Krishna said, "What do you mean I've killed a bull? This bull was a demon in the form of a bull." And Radharani said, "Nevertheless, you killed a bull and you cannot come close to us." So Krishna said, "Well, what do I have to do to atone for this?" And the gopis said, Radharani said, "You have to bathe in all the sacred rivers of the world." And Krishna immediately, with his heel, he made an imprint in the ground, and then he calls all the holy rivers to come and enter into this kund. And then he baths, and then he turns to the gopis and says, "Now I'm purified." And they say, still, we don't want to bathe in your kund, because now it's contaminated by your sin of killing a cow, killing a bull. We'll make our own kund. So the gopis find one of the hoof prints of Arista close by, and they, with their bangles, they break their bangles and they begin carving out a beautiful kund. And then Krishna sees the hard work that they're doing, and he says, let me put my waters into your kund. And Radharani says, never. We'll have our own water. We'll bring it from Manasi Ganga. So all the gopis lined up from Manasi Ganga, and they began passing pots of water all the way from Manasi Ganga. But Krishna could see this was going to be hard work for them. So he called all those holy rivers to him and said, you please go and request Srimati Radhika if you can enter into her kund. Then all those holy rivers, they sang beautiful prayers to Sri Radhika, requesting her to allow them to enter her kund. And the prayers were so beautiful that Radharani agreed. She says, okay, you can come in. So then all the rivers, they all entered into Radharani's kund. And Krishna was so impressed. He said, yes, this kund is absolutely beautiful. And this whole place will become famous by the name of Radha Kund. And Radharani was saying, oh no, but this place will become famous by the name of Shama Kund. And Krishna said, every day I will come and bathe in your kund. And Radharani was saying, every day I will come and bathe in your kund. So in this way, these two kunds were manifested, and they actually filled up with water at exactly midnight. So it's midnight tonight that this Radha Kund becomes totally packed. It was already packed this morning all day long. Thousands and even millions of people have been coming, streaming in. Because it's described, if you take bath in Radha Kund tonight at exactly midnight, then all of your deepest desires will be fulfilled. So it's a very auspicious time to take bath at midnight, but it's an austerity, because there are so many millions of people wanting to do the same thing. So anyway, this is what we are celebrating today, this Bahulastami pastime. And then after this pastime, of course, Krishna would perform Ras Leela every day in the Madhyana period, in the midday period of the day, for 5 hours. All the gopis would meet at Radhakund, and it was a very secluded place. Nobody would interrupt their pastimes. No elders would ever be there. And there are many beautiful descriptions in the scriptures of the arrangements of all the different kunds, the Astasaki kunds, the 8 different kunds. And then there were the 8 principal sakas also, their kunds, and all the different colors of the kunds. And very, very beautiful pastimes were performed there regularly, every single day, for a whole year, the same time as Rasa Leela, or the same period when Rasa Leela was being performed in the evening time. So this is the glories, of course, of Radha Kund are unlimited. We can't estimate the importance and height of Radha Kund's magnificence and potency. When we just even coming from Vrindavan to Radha Kund, you come to a place Chatikara, which is on the main road, and then you come after that, there's a place called Raul, and then after Raul there's a little village called Basant, and when you cross over the canal there, you can see the water tank from Radha Kund, and it's tangibly, we can feel the atmosphere transform when you see the water tanks in Radha Kund. The consciousness changes it. It goes to a higher level of consciousness, without a doubt. Radha Kund is in the highest level of consciousness. Even when you come from Govardhan, the village of Govardhan is so special and exalted, but when you come from Govardhan to Radha Kund, again there's a lift in consciousness. You can tangibly perceive it. So this Kund of Radha Kund is so attractive to all the sadhaks and sevaks of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at this particular time. Mahaprabhu is sitting here. He's sitting in a mood of Radharani and he's looking at Shamkund. So we have a beautiful murti now that was placed there by Paramananda Puri, one of my Gurudev's disciples. And it's a very nice Baitak. So there are so many personalities, all the Goswamis, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, all these personalities have their Baitaks here in Radha Kund. So Radha Kund is such a sacred, special place to reside and to perform bhajan and to glorify the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So these pastimes are being greatly broadcast today in particular. All over the world, devotees will be celebrating and talking about Bahulastami, this beautiful pastime of the manifesting of these two kunds. So Bahulastami ki jai, Go Premanandi. So now we come to the third verse of this remarkable Damodarastakam, and I was listening to an audio of my Gurudev today, and he's saying how this Damodarastakam is completely eternal, not just in Prakat Leela, but also in Aprakat Leela. This pastime takes place in Goloka Vrindavan, in Aprakat Leela. And Narada Rishi is speaking this pastime to Sonaka Rishi at the very beginning of creation. In the first day of Lord Brahma, he's speaking this pastime to Sonaka Rishi. And it's described that Sonaka Rishi's staibhav was not fixed at this point. His staibhav hadn't been realized. That's why we go through Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya to Madhurya in the Astakam. His staibhav wasn't fixed, so Narada Rishi was telling him this pastime. And then this pastime was being sung by many of the sages. And then Satyabrat Muni, he hears this pastime, and then he writes the beautiful stanzas as we have it today. He's the one who writes the verses, as the pastime was already there. But Satyabrat Muni actually captures it and puts it into the verse form that we have today, opening out all the different sequences in the pastimes. And it's described that actually this whole pastime is described as Swarasiki Upasana, which means many pastimes are tumbling simultaneously, which is what we've been describing each night. The number of different pastimes that are manifesting in each verse. So the chapter that or the verse that we just read previously, this verse 2, is described more like mantra Mayi Upasana. So this mantra Mayi Upasana is a single mantra, is a single pastime. When the sadhak meditates on one pastime while he's chanting, that's called mantra Mayi Upasana. But higher even than that is Swarasiki Maya Upasana. And this is when many, many pastimes are happening simultaneously. So this third verse, this is describing this dynamic of many pastimes. Actually, within this third verse, our acharyas describe 12 different leelas. I have a list. 12 different leelas are in this chapter, this verse 3, that we go through. So this is the nature of this Astakam, that is completely eternal. But we discussed this in the first day because Srila Bhakti-Vikrama Keshav Maharaj says this in his preface, and we read that, how it's an eternal Astakam. But I wasn't aware it was actually manifesting originally in Goloka Vrindavan. It actually happened there in Goloka Vrindavan. So it's achintya to us. How is it that two Arjun trees could have got their way into Goloka Vrindavan? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just hearing what my Gurudev is explaining. Because without these trees crashing down, how will that whole mood of deepest concern and attraction to Krishna rise up? Because that fear that the trees created by falling, this was like an udipan for everyone to be more attracted to Krishna and want to protect him and look after him and so on. That's the nature of the Brijvasis. They just want to protect and look after, nourish, nurture baby Krishna. That's their mood. So what we're learning in this whole Astakam is about the moods of the Brijavasis. This is so powerful to appreciate, because how else can we follow the instructions of Rupa Goswami? Tishten Danuga, what is it? Tishten Braje Tanugami Janugami. That one must follow in the footsteps of the Brijavasis. So many verses we've described already that indicate to follow the moods of the Brijvasis. How can you know the moods of the Brijvasis? We can know them by immersing ourselves in this Astakam, in this month. Especially if you have the fortune to be in Vrindavan, and even higher fortune in Govardhan, and even higher fortune in Radhakund. So to meditate on these pastimes is very conducive for our bhajan, without a doubt. Mercy will come. We can't do anything. What's that verse? Nityasiddha Krishna Prem, Sadhya Kabunai, Shravanadi, Shuddhachita, Korye Udai. That not by any amount of sadhan will we be able to actually open out this reality of our spiritual nature, except by the mercy of Guru, Hari and Vaishnavas. That mercy has to come, and we described this yesterday. And I gave the example of fire, which is a clear example. Someone actually wrote on the YouTube that perhaps you can make fire come by twisting the wood together. But still, the point of fire is going to come, and it's the fire that's going to bring out the fire in the other piece of wood. It's the fire that's igniting it. Or the person was giving the opposition that perhaps by mantra you can ignite fire. But still, fire is going to be ignited to bring out the fire within the jiva. The fire, when we say the fire, the spiritual identity of the sadhak. You understand? Clearly. It's quite simple, actually. Okay, so now we're going to start on verse 3. So far we've established our Mangalacharyan in the first verse, and in verse 2 we've gone straight into the Leela, but it's been really focusing on just that mantramayi mood of a single Leela, of Krishna rubbing his eyes, etc., and being fearful, and the ornaments on his neck trembling, etc. So this was the second verse, when he saw the stick in his mother's hand and became fearful of being beaten. So this was our meditation, the second one. Now the third verse, Iti Drik Swalilyabhya Ananda Kunde. What does this Ananda Kunde means? A kund of bliss. Ananda Kunde. What is a kund of bliss? These leelas, Swalilabhya. These leelas are the kund of bliss. This is why this chapter in particular, it's going to go into this Swarasiki conception of many, many pastimes are going to be described, or can be. I mean, our Guru Varga has only given us 12 pastimes, but there are thousands of pastimes that can manifest by meditating on these verses. So many. So, Swagosham nimajantam akpayantam akyapayantam tadiyesita janeshu bhaktiya jitadvam puna prematastam satavriti vande. By his childhood pastimes, such as this, Dam Bandhan Leela he perpetually drowns all the residents of Gokul, his gopas, gopis, cows, calves, and so forth, who are all manifested by his pastime potency in pools of bliss. Krishna is only concerned with Anand, this blissful state, and all of his pastimes are manifesting that extremity of bliss. He takes great bliss in forgetting his Godhead and being served by the Brijbasis. He takes great bliss in being controlled by his devotees. This gives him the greatest pleasure. But there is still something missing, because he can't taste the same amount of pleasure as the Brijbasis taste. So this is why he comes again 5,000 years later as Mahaprabhu, to take all the bliss that he couldn't take during the Vrindavan Leela. In Vrindavan Leela, Krishna is Leela Mai. He's that Leela Purushottam. But in Mahaprabhu Leela, he's called Prem Purushottam. He tastes the Prem of the Brijbasis, particularly Shri Radhika. He tastes her Prem, that Madanakya Mahabhav, and that feeling of separation, that Modan and Mohan Mahabhav. He actually tastes that in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By his childhood pastimes such as this, Dambanda Leela, he perpetually drowns all the residents of Gokul, his gopas, gopis, cows, calves, and so forth, who are all manifested by his pastime potency in pools of bliss. He thus informs those who have knowledge of his absolute divinity that only the pure and simple love of these devotees can conquer him. Again, hundreds of times I offer loving obeisances unto Sri Damodar Krishna. And ultimately, this, my Gurudev is saying, this Damodar Leela is actually Radha Damodar. It's actually, Krishna ultimately is focusing on Sri Radhika in the end, but it's being described as Bal Krishna, childlike Krishna. So now the Digdarshani Tika of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Sri Satyabrat Muni begins this verse with Itidrik Swalilavya to establish his worshipable Lord's unique glory. So we're understanding the history which I just explained, that Narad is explaining this to Sonaka Rishi, and this pastime was passed down through the ages verbally, but it was Satyabrat Muni who manifested it into the verses. And this pastime is so applicable to everybody, moving through, appreciating the different rasas with Krishna that can be brought out by the different sadhaks. He accomplishes this by illustrating his wonderful character. In this verse, iti is used to mean like this. Thus he begins, like this, in his Bhakta Vashyata. In this way, he reiterates that it is Sri Krishna's nature to come under the control of his devotees. It's his nature. It's very beautiful to appreciate that. It's Krishna's nature to become controlled by his devotees' prem. When we say control, it doesn't mean that you're going to order Krishna around necessarily, although the gopis do order Krishna around, and Mother Yashoda does bind him to the grinding mortar, but in the sense of binding him with their love. Krishna will feel completely submissive to their love. Like, what's the highest mood that Sri Radhika experiences, called Swadhina Bhartika, when she controls Krishna. And then Krishna feels great ecstasy because Sri Radhika is feeling that ecstasy of having controlled her lover. This is the ecstasy she feels. Alternatively, iti means by this Damodar Leela, and Idrish Ibis Cha by his supremely enchanting, extraordinary childhood pastimes, like Damodar Leela. He is immersing all the residents of Gokul in great bliss. So this was great bliss when the trees crashed Nanda Baba didn't speak to Mother Yashoda for the whole day. He just took them to the Goshala. We heard that yesterday. And everyone was totally anguished, traumatized by the trees coming down. But when that trauma evaporated and broke because of the intensity of Mother Yashoda's love principally and Krishna's concern for Mother Yashoda, as soon as Rohini Ma had said to Krishna, your mother might die, then Krishna jumped out of his father's arms, ran to Rohini. Rohini took him to Mother Yashoda. And then everyone was weeping. We read this yesterday. These pools of ecstasy were manifested. Weeping in great happiness. This is joyful, actually. The addition of swa in the phrase swalilabhya conveys the greatness of his own pastimes, or it conveys the uncommon excellence of the playfulness of his pastimes. This has been described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:11:7 in statements such as the following.
Gopibhistoti bho nritya bhagavan balavat kvachit udgayati kvachin mugdhastadvasho daruyantravat.
The gopis would encourage Krishna to dance in various ways. They would clap their hands or say, if you dance, then we will give you a laddu. Although Krishna is Bhagavan, the supreme omnipotent Godhead, and the master of all opulences, baby Krishna would dance for them like an innocent human child. Sometimes they would tell him to sing, and like an ordinary bewildered child, he would sing for them. Enchanted by them, he became like a wooden puppet in their hands. Krishna was enchanted by the love of the Brijbasis. This is the mood of the Brijbasis, this loving atmosphere, fully immersing in sweetness totally.
Bibharti kvachidajñaptaha pitakonmanapadukam bahukshepam cha kurute swanam cha pritimavaham.
Srimad Bhagavatam 10:11:8. Sometimes the gopis would order Sri Krishna to bring them someone's shoes, wooden seats, measuring cups, or the weights used for scales. At such times he would act as if he was unable to lift these articles and would simply stand there touching them, and then he would repeatedly strike his arms to show his mightiness. By such gestures he would fill his own kin with boundless joy. So this is all about this Ananda Kund. This is how this Ananda Kund is manifesting, by the great joy given by Krishna's childhood pastimes like this, just melting the hearts of the elder Brijbasis. It was in sole reference to the above statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Sri Satyabrat Muni said, Sri Krishna causes Svagosham, his own kin, the residents of Gokul, to be totally submerged, Nimajantam, in the nectarian and incredibly deep pool of extraordinary happiness, Ananda Kunda. That is the indication of this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Swananda Piritim Samudvahan. He thoroughly arouses deep love in his own dear kin. It's interesting that we're talking about this Ananda Kund, and today is Bahulastami. So this Ananda Kund is actually manifest materially for us, right in front of us. Every day we can have darshan of this Kund and filling our hearts with Anand, isn't it? When we do a Parikrama of Radha Kund or we bathe in Radha Kund, always she's reciprocating with great bliss. Alternatively, the words Gosha mean to loudly proclaim the glory of something. Directing the word Ghosh either to himself, Swasya, or to his own, Swanam, the meaning becomes either by broadcasting his own glories or by broadcasting the glories of his Gopas and Gopis. Certainly by becoming absorbed in the moods of spreading his extraordinary glories as well as the glories of his own loved ones. Even Sri Krishna sinks in Ananda Kund, and as a result, he feels the highest limit of happiness. Krishna is feeling the highest limit of happiness by his reciprocation with the Brijbasis. How could we want any other birth other than a Brijbasi? Yes, we can want something more. We can want to be directly a maidservant of Sri Radhika as a Brijbasi. But we would be living in Vrindavan, in the village of Braj, under the guidance of Sri Radhika. He feels the highest limit of happiness. In order to further describe the extraordinary qualities of Sri Bhagavan, Sri Satyabrat Muni then says, by these pastimes, Sri Krishna is making it known, Akhyai Payantam, to all who are Tadya Ishta, Isita, Jneshu. And this phrase is described in a footnote at the bottom. The phrase Tadya Ishita Jneshu refers to those among his worshippers, Tadya, who know Jneshu about his absolute supremacy. Ishita. Ishita is like from the word Isha. They know his supremacy. Who worship him as the supreme controller and the master of all souls, that he is himself controlled and defeated by the love of his pure devotees. Bhaktya Jitavam. In other words, Krishna is declaring, I willingly become controlled by my bhaktas alone, who are intent on serving me with pure devotion. I am never controlled by those who are inclined to worship me while considering my supreme position and opulence. I was just reflecting today how when the Sakas, they come with Krishna into Mathura, when Akrura has come to take Krishna to fight in the wrestling arena in Mathura. And all the Sakas, they come on bullock carts with Nanda Baba. And all the Sakas are there when Krishna is walking through the township of Mathura. And he very nonchalantly, he kills the washerman. The washerman won't give the clothes. And Krishna, just with his hand, chops his head off, right in front of all his Sakas. What do his Sakas think of Krishna's immense potency? They've already seen his potency killing Bakasura, killing Trinavrata. They saw Trinavrata's body. They even saw Shakatasura when they were small. So they've experienced Krishna's amazing feats. So in the township of Mathura, though, we've come out of that Madhurya realm of Vrindavan. So it's in a different atmosphere, a different realm. I mean, Krishna is acting in this amazing godlike way. So how do the Sakas relate to that? Because their affection and attraction will override that Aishwarya mood that might be perceived. Like when Krishna kills that Kuvalyapida elephant. He drags that enormous elephant by the tail, swinging him around. And then he punches his head, yanks out one of its tusks and kills him. And the Sakas are all there watching this. So this is definitely like an Aishwarya act on Krishna's part. When he kills Chanuram and Balaram kills Mustika. And then eventually when he kills Kamsa himself. These are all like Aishwarya acts in the township of Mathura. Mathura doesn't have the same atmosphere as Vrindavan. It's different. So how are the Sakas who are there able to reconcile that this is just my dear friend when they've seen him do such heroic acts like only the Lord can perform? Because their immense love covers that Aishwarya. This is the reason. That prem, it'll cover that, because here the Aishwarya becomes extreme. When Kamsa was the biggest demon, Kamsa had killed all, or had defeated all the other demons. He defeated Trinavrata. He didn't defeat Putana. He made a truce with Putana. But all the other demons, Keshi, Arista, all these different personalities, they were all defeated by Kamsa. He was the biggest demon. And yet Krishna so easily killed him, just threw him from that dais onto the wrestling mat and sat on his chest and just killed him with his weight landing on him. So this is definitely an act of Aishwarya in front of all the Brijvasis. But amazingly, it's described, just to continue that pastime, that when Krishna had killed Kamsa, all the Sakas came and jumped on the stage with him. And they were all dancing around, playing their flutes and singing in celebration. And they were all thinking, my Gurudev describes, that they could have also killed Kamsa. Because Krishna is not such a big hero. They can actually defeat Krishna sometimes. So they have this mood with Krishna. So this mood is what the sadhak is trying to imbibe. This mood of the Brijbasis. They don't feel at any time like someone like Bhishma Dev or Uddhav. They believe always Krishna is that supreme personality of Godhead. Even though they're tremendously attracted to Krishna, but still they believe he's the supreme personality of God. So it doesn't control him. But the mood of the Brijbasis, and in this instance where I'm talking about now, the Sakas themselves, they control Krishna by their love and their affection. So this is...
How come they actually go out of Vrindavan? Because gopis, they don't go.
No, the gopis don't go out of Vrindavan. Their love is the highest, highest, highest. They don't need to go out. But the Sakas come with Nanda Baba to Mathura. And they witness all these pastimes directly. And then they go back to Vrindavan. And again, Yogamaya, of course, is acting all the time. She is there in the background to reconcile any difficulties that are there. This is when it comes into the achintya aspect. But nevertheless, the prem of the Sakas is so, just like Mother Yashoda's prem will cover her vision of the universal form practically inside Krishna's body. She thinks this is just my son. It must have been invaded by a ghost. And she calls the Brahmanas, remember the story of Brahmantakun, eating the dirt, etc. So many pastimes like this. So the Aishwarya is covered by such an immensity of prem. This is a very important point to actually deeply appreciate. It's like I've said before, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Ragvartman Chandrika gives the example of in Vaikuntha, Aishwarya is represented as salt, for example. And if you have a glass and you put a little bit of salt in it and water, it tastes very salty because the amount of water is compared to the sweetness, and the Aishwarya is the salt. So in this analogy, the sweetness is not so great because it's just in one glass, and the salt is much less because it's just a spoonful in a glass, but it tastes very salty. So there's always Aishwarya mood in Vaikuntha. But in the realm of Goloka Vrindavan, if you take a whole 20 kg sack of salt and you submerge it in the Ganga, how much salt do you taste from the Ganga? You don't taste any, because the Ganga represents the water of Madhurya. And the water of Madhurya, the mood of Madhurya, is so much more present than the Aishwarya. So it's always covering the Aishwarya. And we should see in our practice also, how much Aishwarya are we holding towards the Lord? How much are we able to go forward with this mood of Vishrambhena Seva, or Vishwambara Seva, this close, intimate Seva with our Guru Varga? We must try for that. So,
Thus the sage captures.
oh, this here. Thus, the sage captures the meaning of the following statement from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:11-9.
Darshayam stadvidam loka atmano bhrutya.
Bhagavan Shri Krishna showed the community of those who know about his supreme position that he only remains under the full control of his loving servants. And that control means that they know even more than the Vaikuntha residents of his opulences. But there's such an immensity of sweetness in their attraction to Krishna that will submerge that. But nevertheless, the opulence, the Aishwarya of Braj is much, much, much more, billions of times more than in Vaikuntha. But the Madhurya submerges it, like the example, the analogy I've just given. The commentator, Sri Sanatana Goswami, personally explains the above statement of Bhagavatam as follows. Here, the word tad, about that or about him, is connected to Sri Krishna's position as Bhagavan. And when it is combined with vidam, knowledge of, it becomes knowledge of his position as Bhagavan. Thus, the meaning is clear. He is showing darshyams, that those who know about his supreme opulence, that he willingly comes under the control of his loving servants. In other words, the original Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chandra, is exhibiting that in every respect he is only controlled by his loving servants in Braj. And among them, he is especially controlled by those in Unnata Ujjvala Ras, the supremely pure humor of Madhurya Ras, transcendental amour. He is not controlled by devotees who worship him on the path of Aishwarya Bhakti, which is characterized by the mood of reverence. Nor is he controlled by Gyanis, who know him to be the self-sufficient, supremely powerful Lord, nor by those whose bhakti is mixed with such gyan. But there is another meaning of tadiyeshita nesu, bhaktya jitavam. Sri Krishna only reveals akya payantam, that he is willingly controlled, jitatvam, by his loving devotees only to those who have proper knowledge of such beloved devotees' exalted position. So this is the appreciation of what I've just said previously about they have that Aishwarya mood underneath always for Krishna, but it's covered by the sweetness, the speciality. It's like I can remember serving my Gurudev many times, and sometimes Brijabasis would come in to serve my Gurudev, and they would just take hold of his feet and begin massaging like that. And we would all just see that, and my Gurudev would accept that, because he could see the mood of absolute affection. But if one of us tried to do that, and one time one boy did try to do that, Gurudev just kicked him away, because he didn't really have the depth of the deepest honor at heart. That Aishwarya, that absolute honor, was not there. So sometimes my Gurudev would demonstrate this. He would show his allowance of the Brijbasis to speak with him in very natural ways. But when we tried to do that, he would just kick us out and reject us, because the awe and reverence was not fixed to the same degree. You understand? It was very beautiful lessons to see that. This is because bhakti, and especially its glories, are very confidential, so he does not reveal it to everyone. It is inappropriate to explain to anyone who is not specifically acquainted with the exalted glories of the Vaishnavas, and who is only interested in impersonal knowledge. From this perspective, the previously cited verse should be interpreted by connecting vidam with brititya vashyata. Thus, the general meaning of tadvidam, those who know Sri Krishna's supreme position, become britya vashyata vidam, those who know that Sri Krishna willingly comes under the control of his loving servants. These are important points to appreciate. I hope everyone is understanding these points deeply. I've given these examples about the Aishwarya being covered. The Aishwarya is always there. It's like if we talk about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. In a material sense, we can say, yes, this is like prem ras of the, just like the nature of teenage kids today. We can say, well, this is rasa, but there's no great respect in there between them. There's no full Aishwarya underneath that to make it a transcendental experience. Understand? Without that deepest respect, then the prem would just appear like a regular mundane relationship. But when that deep respect is there, then it becomes pure prem. Therefore, Sri Satyabrat Muni prays, overwhelmed with incomparable pure loving devotion for you, Premata, I offer you Vandana, my prayers of adoration, hundreds of times. Shata Avriti, to you, Tam, the Supreme Lord, I offer Vandanam again and again, Puna. Thus, in this verse, the sage wishes to say, among the limbs of bhakti, which are required for all devotees, I only pray to perform one special limb of bhakti, Vandana, to constantly express my adoration for Sri Bhagavan. I do not pray for knowledge of Sri Bhagavan's opulence or anything else. He just wants to worship Bhagavan without the consideration of Bhagavan's Aishwarya. But simultaneously, the Aishwarya is underneath that. You understand? It's not so direct. We have to understand. We can say in simple language, respect. Like if someone is overly familiar with somebody else and they're not offering sufficient respect, then it becomes something of a degraded relationship. But if deep respect is there, then some joking can take place like that. If always that respect is at heart. So that respect we can interpret as Aishwarya. What?
Sometimes in Srimad Bhagavatam, the book is addressed Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Lord. What connection?
They say like that in their separation moods, and they only say it like in the 4th verse of Gopi Gita.
Yes.
They're saying this verse, Nakala Gopika. This verse is saying that we know you are that Supreme Lord because they've heard it from Purnamasi, but actually they don't believe it. They actually don't believe it because they only just say it that one time because they think that's going to attract Krishna to come and relieve their pain of separation, but they don't actually believe that. They've just heard it from Purnamasi that he's, and Krishna tells them himself, don't you know I'm the Supreme Personality? And then they laugh at him. You know, they don't really believe that. Understand?
Yeah, I understand. It's just what Aishwarya they have the gopis.
What?
Do they have some Aishwarya?
They demonstrate that only in their separation moods. When they're feeling the deepest separation, like in Pranaya Gita also, they call Krishna, we know you are the super soul within everybody. But they only have that realization when they're in a mood of separation. When they're actually in union with Krishna, they can't even conceive of that idea. That idea is not even anywhere near their consciousnesses. But when they're in separation mood, then they glorify Krishna sometimes, very little, as the Supreme Lord, even though they don't really believe it. It's described like, my Gurudev describes the example of boiling 200 liters of milk, and every now and again a little blade of grass might come to the surface. And that's sort of like an Aishwarya impression of Krishna, and then it quickly gets submerged again back into the Madhurya. So it's never lasting. But it's only in separation that they speak like this. When they're in union mood, when it's the pastimes are going on, they never think for a moment like that. Not even Radhika, when she's seeing Krishna manifesting, dancing between every single gopi, 300 billion gopis at the same time, and he's not expanding himself, and he's dancing with all the different, she's not thinking, oh, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that's not going to be compatible for their relationship. It's not going to be sweet. These are very deep points, actually. These are very significant high points that we must pray to our Guru Varga to give us the mercy to understand these points and to be comfortable with them in the association of higher Vaishnavas. When we're in the association of higher Vaishnavas, then these topics are much easier to appreciate. So, Damodarastakam ki jai. And tomorrow we'll begin my Gurudev's Digdarshani Vritti. Bahulastami ki jai. Radhakun ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavaivacha, Patitanam Pavnibhyo, Vaishnave Namo Namaha. Thank you.
Yes.